Oh my God, Jonathan Toon. I haven't seen you in forever. What table are you playing at? Tell me, I'll come over. I hear you're quite the big baller over here.
He has never heard that phrase.
I don't know how to take that right.
It's John Toon. John Toon coming in live from Las Vegas. John, can you hear us? John, how's it going out there? Have you learned anything about accounting tech on the other side of the world? No?
Is
Okay,
this
great.
what we're aiming for? We're aiming for Eurovision sort of dial-in vibes. Had a good trip visiting a few firms over here and bits and pieces. And enjoying the excruciating heat of Vegas because it's 40 degrees today. So there you go. Happy days.
Ooh. Don't you just stay indoors? Don't you just move from one indoor venue to another?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like the whole of Engage is happening in like a conference center that's part of the hotel, so you don't have to ever go outside ever for anything.
Have you put anything on the blackjack table yet?
I haven't actually been gambling yet. Other than playing like about $10 worth on the slot machine, which was a complete waste of time. That's been it so far. But I think I'm going to be catching up with the inflow guys at the end of the week. So I think there was a mention of potentially playing poker for a little while. But
so you found a vendor to gamble their money is basically what you're telling us.
Well, it's not entirely clear if I get to gamble their money or if I have to actually engage and put my money down. And if that's the case, then I will just like play one round and then tap out because I can't afford to.
Don't do that, John. You'll embarrass us. Come on, teach everyone what Toon really is about. Hey, play big, play hard, or don't come home at all. They can teach you.
Honestly, Indy, there's a Starbucks here in the restaurant in the casino, and I think just like a normal coffee is like $12, right? That's how ridiculous it is.
Jesus.
Like every meal you go for, even breakfast, like costs $30-40 minimum per person.
Wow.
So what we're saying is that you're coming back really shredded, poor, but also probably quite skinny. That's a good win-win, I'd say. Make a few contacts, learn a few things about accounting tech, come back 2 dress sizes smaller. Well done, John.
2 dress sizes smaller, absolutely, yeah.
You'll have all of them chasing you, won't you? Pinning you down, John, too.
Yeah, and then there was a bit of a noobs reception last night where I just sort of bumped into a whole bunch of other people whose names I can't remember, but I'm sure I'll see them out and about.
A noobs reception? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No, he said nude reception. I heard nude.
Nude reception.
Yeah.
Nudes, not
reception. Right, we definitely had nudes reception.
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit.
So one of the things, right, if you go to the pools at any of the hotels here, given that you're in Vegas, right, and given that everyone knows what Vegas is all about, you're not allowed to sunbathe in the European style.
Oh, it's
what you mean, naked?
European. It's all about, that's what they're positioning it as a European problem.
It's not a European, it's not a problem, is it? What's wrong with getting your boobs out on the beach or by the pool?
Are they wearing like a full Victorian outfit where it's like all the way covered?
Yeah, like wool. It's a wool swimsuit.
It's
So when you go in the pool, you just sink to the bottom. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital in a Cruel World podcast. I'm delighted to say that for the first time ever, I'm presenting from another country. I'm over in Vegas visiting the Engage conference, doing a bit of a tour of firms over here as well at the same time. So you are hearing me live from the Strip in Vegas. It's incredibly exciting, and you never know if we carry on much longer, I might take my clothes off as well at the same time. So it could get really exciting. Talking of taking your clothes off, Indy, how are you doing at the moment?
I don't know why you think that that's an appropriate response to give to me or introduction to give to me. I'm not as European as you are, and I hear it's a European problem. So, also, I'm not the one that went to a nudes party. Was it like a nudes welcome party? I don't think I've ever done anything like that. It's very risque of you. Yeah, I'm fine. I am good. I'm fully recovered from Accountex. Not going to XeroCon, unfortunately. No plans to as yet. Here, there's quite a few different side events that might take place. not sure that I know many people yet that are going to the event. Looking forward to the fact that event season has come to a close, or is coming to a close. And then we will kick it off again later in the year with something that hopefully is our own exciting announcement for an event as well.
Oh, yes, we are looking forward to launching that. So that should be something good to look forward to. And, talking as, something good to look forward to, Ryan Piercy, how the devil are you, mate?
I think you ran out of intros for me then, mate. You didn't actually have a clue what to introduce me as, but no, thank you. It's good to be introduced. I'm trying not to cough. I'm ill, so I'll be focusing mostly on this pod, not coughing my lungs up. But I'm looking forward to XeroCon. I'm talking at this XeroCon. First time ever for me.
Ooh.
So excited about that one. We're talking with Dext. Been invited to talk with Dext on their integration and work with Xero.
Well, it sounds exciting. That's, unfortunately, I'm going to miss XeroCon as well because I can't make it, unfortunately, because I literally land back from the UK about 3 or 4 days beforehand, and I've got to do the parent thing. So, I'm going to miss XeroCon for the first time in a long time, which is a shame. But good to hear you going, and good to hear you speaking as well, which is incredible news. And so we've got a hopefully a fun-packed pod today. We've got a little bit of news. It's been a bit quiet, so we might add some exciting insights or predictions as well, just to change it up a little bit and see what the American slant on accounting tech is. But let's go.
Yeah, will you ask them why they get all of the good technology as well?
All the good.
Wait, you mean like QuickBooks?
Like Intuit.
Why do QuickBooks only concentrate on the US? What's wrong with the rest of the world? Is it because they sit nude on the beach or something? Was that the problem, John?
Getting nude on the beach.
Will you ask
I'm pretty sure you can get nude on the beach in certain places in the US. So that must be capable.
It's the European beaches, the designated ones for the Europeans.
I mean, effectively, America is essentially European, right? It was owned by the Spanish, the Dutch, and us, right? It's never not been European for the last sort of 280 years or whatever it is.
I mean, the Native Americans might be slightly offended by that statement, but fair enough.
Keeping on the American theme, then, we've got an update from Intuit, which is their latest quarterly results. And they are absolutely flying, as they have been for as long as we've been reporting results, it feels like. The CEO made a statement that said the era of AI is one of the most significant technological shifts in their lifetime, and their strategy is to be a global AI-driven expert platform and delivering significant results and benefits to their customers and strong results across the company as a result. And I did have a quick look at their numbers, and they have so far invested around about $500 million in their R&D research. Not sure how much of that is spent on AI because they don't really give you that information, but they still spent a considerable amount of money on research. Having said that also is a similar kind of number to what's been spent on their share option investments and remuneration strategy. So although that's not a cash cost of the business yet, that's also in there. But probably more relevant to us is around where QuickBooks is growing, QuickBooks Online is growing, and that revenue grew by 19% in the quarter, and driven by both a mixture of growth and higher prices. And I guess that's probably something that we've seen here in the UK, isn't it? Is that although they haven't jacked the prices recently, but what they have been doing is they've been removing all of the sort of discounting opportunities, and the good old sort of like $1 licenses have long since gone. And if you look at their outturn for the full year, they're expecting to be way above what they predicted to the market. So they're expecting growth of like 1 or 2 percentage points more than they originally forecast. So yeah, they're doing incredibly well at the moment. They've got something crazy like 4.9 billion in the bank, although they do have 6 billion of debt as well. So a big chunk of change, and they're doing a mixture of paying out bigger dividends and doing a share buyback program. I think they've got 2.6 billion. I think it is set aside for potential share buyback over the next few quarters. So returning shareholder value as well as everything else, which is good for people like myself who have invested in Intuit.
That's not a bad amount of money to have in the bank, is it? What was it, 4 billion? You said.
I have a question about why they have not reported individually on MailChimp, but they have on TurboTax and they have on Credit Karma.
Oh no, they did, to be honest, and I just didn't include it. So they've actually gone quite granular with the detail in terms of they've in the press release and the detail that's on their website. They've got a breakdown of pretty much all of their major like product features. So Credit Karma, MailChimp, etc., showing the growth there. I think Credit Karma grew by around about 9%, which is really interesting because I use Credit Karma
8%.
and I don't really see too much from a revenue generation opportunity here in the UK, but I know, having been here in the US and seen it advertised a few times, they're making decent returns on that, which is interesting.
Well, I've also got some end of year figures from Xero, who've had a strong financial year in 2024. They grew by 22%, up from 1.4 billion New Zealand dollars to 1.7 billion New Zealand dollars in 2024. And actually, looking at the exchange rate, that puts them into, I believe, although I guess it did fluctuate through the year, over $1 billion US dollars in turnover. So they've hit that metric, which must be quite a big achievement for them. And following on the back of that, that's come from an increase in subscriber level of about 11%. But most of it's come from an increase in average revenue per user at 14%, probably from their price increases during that year. Now, the increase in subscribers has actually reduced in rate. So in 2023, it's 470,000 and it's gone to 419,000 in 2024. So the growth in that subscribers has reduced. Maybe that's a fallout from the increase in revenue. I putting up the prices. It's hard to tell. But yeah, they've definitely seen a fall in that area. And then they've got an increase in EBITDA by 75%, the adjusted EBITDA to 0.5 billion New Zealand dollars. So they've got, a huge amount of profit now. And as Sukhinder Cassidy states, the results show exactly what they've been set out that they intended to do, which is a strong, profitable growth in financial year 2024. And demonstrating their commitment to balancing the between growth and profitability. Now, I believe there's some figures around UK as well. Specifically, they added 107,000 net subscribers, taking the total subscribers to 1.1 million. So that's quite a substantial amount of growth, and that's even without anything Making Tax Digital related, where they've pinned a lot of their growth in the past on that specific area. So yeah, there's been some notable growth. And I believe there was a write-off in the year as well of Xero Go, which was 28.9 million, the impairment of Xero Go. What a great venture that was. They've written that off. So yeah, I mean, look, they've done what they said to do. They'd strip out the bits that weren't making money, they'd focus, and they'd make themselves more profitable. So Sukhinder has done exactly what she promised to deliver.
It's interesting to hear about the sort of subscriber growth numbers, maybe slowing down a little bit, but I guess that's probably an inevitability given the saturation in more particularly in the Aussie sort of New Zealand market, but also as they sort of strive to grow in other markets, that's obviously proving to be difficult for them, isn't it?
Yeah, they seem pretty bullshit about the bill pay release and the e-invoicing release in the UK as well, because that also sat on their announcements. So they seem pretty confident that those are going to be a success, which compared to, I guess, what they've done with some of their acquisitions in the past, maybe the strategic partnerships, the future for them.
I think it reaffirms exactly that the focus was payments. And now they're seeing average revenue per user increasing. Has always been all of these payment applications that are sat on the side are pretty much speaking to that same increase of average revenue per user. So I think she's done a good job of turning off and failing fast. With a behemoth the size of Xero, you're always going to have whole swaths of parts of the business focused on something that is just not profitable, would need a significant amount more of marketing money put behind it. Whereas if you strike up strategic alliances on the payment side and just focus on increasing the average revenue, it's a much shorter time to cash than there is on monetizing a much smaller client base that is highly fractious and depends on the different geographies that you operate in. So, yeah, just a great job. Okay, so seeing as we've spoken Intuit, Xero, onto Sage, and Sage has net zero targets spanning all 3 emission scopes, aiming to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions across the value chain by 2040. In order to achieve this, Sage had committed to a 50% reduction in scopes 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 2030. They've had their targets approved by the Science Based Targets Initiative, which is a collaboration between the Carbon Disclosure Project and the United Nations Global Compact World Resources Institute, and also the Worldwide Fund for Nature. So there's 4 specific areas that they're targeting: sustainable supply chain, sustainable colleague behavior, sustainable product, and sustainable property. They've got some pretty stiff ambitions across all of those areas to manage the emissions across the various parts of the value chain that they've got and the partners that they work with. There's a lot of education in terms of the usage of the technology. For example, the benefits of choosing to host products and services within efficient cloud environments. And there'll also be energy and carbon performance in its workspaces, so hybrid work environments, and just again reducing overall consumption of energy and using renewable sources.
If I was to be slightly skeptical about this, there are some question marks about having things like your emissions targets verified anyway, because there are conflicting standards and a lack of accountability across many of these things. And so you could, if you wanted to, potentially say that people are greenwashing still some of these things by just saying that they're getting someone else on board to verify stuff.
I agree with this wholeheartedly, John. This is the first thing that you've said on this podcast that's made total sense to me. No, he says a lot of things that make sense. That's not true. But, the whole idea that they're going to use energy from renewable sources in the electricity consumption, so it's a bit of a contradiction in terms, because the system to support renewable energy still relies on the dirty and the heavy and the oil and gas in order to store it. So to verify it is very difficult, because you might consume from that, but you're only measuring one part of the chain, and how far down the pipe do you need to go in terms of where that energy was stored and what energy was used to maintain the storage of that renewable energy.
I think this comes back to the bigger problem that you've got with general ESG reporting at the moment, is that we do now have some standards around that, and there is an expectation that accountants are going to be the people that have to deliver assurance services around ESG reporting. And I'm actually working on a project at the moment which is looking at that and how that framework might be delivered. But the bigger challenge is that organizations like Sage and Intuit, Xero, etc. have responsibility to do ESG reporting, but often the most difficult part of that is the supply chain side, because you can control your own emissions insofar as you can control your energy use. You can control whether your employees travel by trains, planes, and automobiles, etc. To an extent, but what you can't do is you can't then control how the people in your supply chain act and whether they're acting in accordance with what you expect. And the only way to sort of change their attitudes sometimes is obviously to make choices about whether you continue to work with those suppliers and make it a financial issue. But if you've got an ESG reporting requirement that says, right, we're Sage and we want to report on our supply chain, you've then got to put the onus on people in your supply chain who may be small businesses who don't have the data and the information readily available to them to provide information on a whole scale of things, covering emissions, travel, transport, all sorts of other things which are really difficult to track.
Agreed, but we have to start somewhere. And if we don't start somewhere, then we'll just dither and nothing moves forward. So
this is true.
I think,
although the FCA has released its anti-greenwashing guidance as well to stop even the firms inflating their green credentials, because in order for us to kind of tackle greenwashing, there needs to be a standard that's set. And so it's It's not going to be something that one individual business will be able to weigh in and lead the narrative on it, because we're all still trying to figure it out.
I agree. We've got to make a start, but we've also got to be very conscious of the fact that businesses are increasingly using green credentials as a marketing tool to encourage customers to buy from them.
Yeah, well, look, Sage are greenwashing our news because I got another story from Sage. That's my feed in here. So Sage have partnered with DonerPerfect. So this is a tool for assisting with fundraising. So Sage Intact Fundraising is now powered by DonerPerfect, which is a cloud-based solution that basically helps get in donations for that business. So it enables them to personalize communications with targeted outreach campaigns. You can get, strategic data on all of your donors to target, I guess, and amplify your donations. And then the main challenge, I guess, with any of these tools is the automated and effortless completion of the forms and storage of those. So that part, and if you've ever worked in, I guess, any of the ecosystems on the smaller side, with, I guess, Sage Business Cloud, Xero, QuickBooks Online, they've had these tools that will integrate. Sage Intact now has the same thing with DonerPerfect.
It's a shame because when I first saw that headline, I thought, oh, they've solved the Friday night post pub trip, DonerPerfect. It's like they've solved the ultimate kebab problem.
Oh, no, that would be brilliant.
And just to wrap this up with a little bit more Sage news, we've got a few announcements and updates for Sage Intact. They've released something called PwC Control Insights, which is now generally available to US, Canadian, UK, South African, and Australian companies. And this is effectively a live dashboard. So what if that means it's something akin to, say, like Expert or Dex Precision, and maybe kind of giving you some insight on where things have not gone through an anticipated process. That might be what we're looking for, but without seeing it live in the product, which I haven't done, I couldn't tell you exactly what they're trying to do there. And then the one that I sort of really was quite interested in is an AI-powered timesheet solution called Sage Intelligent Time, or SIT. I'm not entirely sure if I like the acronym, but it's fine. And that's been embedded into Sage Intact to help you when you're obviously filling out your timesheets, but to make sure that you get the allocations across clients and projects and tasks a bit more accurate. And their intention behind that is that it can help you maximize the billable time and also improve accuracy and efficiency of time recording, so that people spend less time on timesheets, which obviously is always an issue, particularly familiar to us accountants. And then another interesting one, which I thought was great, is they've tied together the fixed asset side of it and the purchasing side of Intact, so that as you go through the purchase process of buying a new fixed asset, you can actually take the data from there and put it straight into the fixed asset register, which I think is a pretty neat improvement, because again, for anyone that's familiar with most accounting products, is that you tend to do your purchasing in one place, and then you have to go to the fixed asset module to actually sort of like create the fixed asset, even if it does partially extract some information, and so it's not quite fully connected. So I think this is pretty cool way of improving things, and that's been released into the US, Canadian, UK, Ireland, Australian, French, and South African products as well. And then the last couple of announcements that they've got is that they've improved the way that you can go about doing revenue recognition within the product. So you can now do a whole bunch of interesting things around managing things like deferred and accrued revenue, and you can set that up a little bit easier in terms of how you account for that, but also how you reconcile that as well, just to make sure that it's it's accurate and keeping up with how you're expecting things to happen. And they've added some search and filter options so that you can sort of hop between the revenue schedules that you create. So that's basically the ability to say, right, this type of revenue in this nominal code, for example, might be spread over 12 months, and every time you put an invoice in, it needs to be spread in that way. Obviously, that can get mega complex, particularly as you go through quite a lot of volume. So that's nice little enhancement. And then they've added some features for contracting organizations or construction organizations to help them improve effectively project management and how you go about doing project revenue and billing and manage work in progress. So that is available for early adopters in the UK, so it's not fully launched here at the moment.
Wow, what a lot of releases from Sage Intacct. That was a mammoth thing. And do you say that Sage has intelligent time?
It's intelligent time. Sit. I was like, I'm still not sure about that. It's like,
I think my acronym was better.
Yeah.
My God, you ate your greens today. That's what I will say. Like, you really made it count there, John. You went through every single one.
Good to know that Ryan's still full of fibre. That's all I'm saying.
Xero announced their pricing plan changes effective from the 12th of September 2024. For those of you who have not already seen, where have you been? It caused a major uproar across social channels. And actually going through some of the pricing plans that they have got, there's a Ledger for £250, Cashbook for £7, Ignite, which is £16. That's accounting basics for businesses who are starting out. Grow at £33, which are accounting tools for self-employed and growing businesses. Comprehensive at £47, which is streamlined accounting and payroll for businesses with employees. And then Ultimate, which is the enhanced version at £59 per business, is accounting, payroll, and forecasting tools to help businesses scale and grow for the future. When comparing some of the old plans, the major enhancement seems to be around being able to encourage users to make bill payments, claim expenses, and run payroll with some limits included in terms of how many bill payments could be made per month that are included within that new price plan, as well as how many people, for example, can claim the expenses mileage and how many people you can run payroll for. So it seems like they're trying to add value in terms of software adoption. And yes, it's a price increase, and yes, it's a pain in the backside for most, but it does seem that a lot of zeros, do we call them zeros? A lot of zeros came out defending Xero for the price increases and what it means to the businesses they work with. Guys, do you have any feedback, any reflections and thoughts on it? How did it go down with your firms?
I'm still digesting it, to be honest, because they're bundled. Yeah, and fiber. The main change for me is because they've bundled so many things in different levels. It's hard to tell what clients are going to be saving money, what clients are going to be having to fork out. I believe the pricing structure is now more aligned with what they're doing in Australia, New Zealand, which I think have the similar style of bundling. So it makes sense we would transition to that. The biggest feedback that I saw from everyone was not that there's a price increase, and it's a notable price increase. It's that it's been 2 years in a row, and what have they released in those 2 years? I think people generally are happy. Xero is still a great tool. If it's still delivering and it's still cutting edge, then it makes sense to increase the prices to reflect that. But I think there's some frustration out there that it feels like all they've done is been doing stuff in the back end rather than bringing out new functionality. Admittedly, the bill pay part is great, and I think that bundling that in certain areas I think is a big win. But I think the main thing is there's frustration that, okay, if you're going to bump the prices, bring some more stuff to justify that. But between now and then, there is a XeroCon. So who knows? At the end of that, people will be like, yeah, charge us more. Woo.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Ryan. Is like we've got XeroCon coming up, haven't we? And that's always the event where Xero try to make their big announcements about product and acquisitions or whatever else they're doing. So I think we just have to hang fire on that and see if anything new is coming out. I mean, I'm getting a bit bored, to be honest, of this sort of like the whole pricing debate and whether or not people should put the prices up. We don't have the same pricing debate around your mobile phone tariff or your gas and electric bill, which always goes up every year, no matter what. And you can't say that Vodafone or British Gas are making any significant investments to improve the service offering and the way that you get your coverage or whatever else. If everybody in the sort of monthly effectively SaaS world is charging us amounts and increasing us by above inflation increases and not really delivering any improvement in service. Why do we have an expectation that the likes of Xero, Sage, etc. have to do the same? Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't expect that, but we don't seem to consistently expect that across all of our suppliers. I think the one thing that sort of slipped through the cracks almost entirely is what you alluded to, though, Ryan, is that the bundling of the services and the kind of the rebranding of some of the packages. I think that's the more important thing here, because that's the bit that's going to be most impactful for our clients and the businesses that we're dealing with, and understanding what that means. Particularly if they're going to be offered, say, access to, say, something like payroll, which maybe they haven't used in the past, might prompt some change for some of our businesses, or might even raise some questions about why have they never been offered access to payroll before, for example. And so I think that's got to be something that's going to be considered. And I'm a little bit like you. I'm still trying to consume and understand exactly what these changes mean and the implications for our client base. But the pricing going up, I'm not that bothered. We pass on the pricing of most of our products to our clients anyway, because it ultimately is their cost. So it doesn't have an impact for us as a firm, other than we just need to make sure we capture these new costs in our billing cycle.
Yeah, I mean, the bit I would disagree with you on there, John, is when you say mobile phone businesses or gas and electricity suppliers, they're easy to transition away from. It's really easy to switch that without really any impact. This is more, I would say, akin to like I don't know, someone that's hard. You can move, but it's hard to. So it's not quite like a water company where they keep upping the prices and then all you do is get more sewage in your water supply. But it's not as an easy transition. So the frustration, I think, is they're going, oh, well, if you're doing this, I'd like to be able to move, but it's such a pain to move. Then I kind of have to just suck it up.
Yeah, I mean, the water company one is a bad example, right? Because the only way you can move water company is by moving house to a different area. But
as equally painful, I think.
Final bit of news, then we have an acquisition, and it's come from HG, and they have just spent over $3 billion on a product based out in LA, which is where I was earlier in the week, called AuditBoard. It's probably not too familiar to many people, because AuditBoard is a product that's really aimed at sort of internal audit services, so they tend to have gone direct to market than direct to firms. But AuditBoard was formed or created back in 2014, so about 10 years old. And like I say, HG just picked them up. So that's incredible turnaround, isn't it, for a business that's only 10 years old. AuditBoard's a product that I've been sort of aware of for a long time. We've kind of never really got into it too much, because, like I say, it's an internal audit thing, really aimed more at businesses. But they do a whole bunch of things around looking at the things that you risk assess within an organization, and then monitors those areas. You've also got the ability to look at things like information security, including as well ESG, and being able to monitor an ESG scorecard that you can create within an organization and see whether you're on track to achieve certain things or whether there's risks in there. So I think it's an incredibly valuable tool for much larger organizations. Very interesting that HG have picked this up, because it would be interesting to see what they do with this as a product in terms of how they grow that out. I imagine they'll try and bring it to some of the European markets that they're more familiar with. But I do wonder whether they'll try and maybe introduce it to some of their other portfolio products and expand the opportunities there.
So we're back with Tony Stevenson from FreeAgent again. One of the main things that I keep saying, which started as a bit of a joke, but actually is built on some truth there, is that FreeAgent is probably the friendliest accounting software in the world. And this, Tony, comes from your plethora of awards you keep winning in this space.
We do probably two things differently that maybe have lent us down this road. So one is that we have a phone number that you can call to speak to our support team, which I know is novel,
Radical.
Right? I know. And usually there's a sharp intake of breath when we say that. It's based on the fact that we think our product's so easy to use that we can support that, and we have supported that, and it has worked fine for our kind of closing on 200,000 active users. Our account management team have typically kind of less to look after than you would perhaps expect in the SaaS model. So they have a higher touch, much lower turnover sort of relationship with our partners, so they get to know their account manager over time. Not wanting to sling any mud at anywhere, but it is a common complaint that we get is that my account manager's changed 4 times this year, and we try to avoid that for FreeAgent where we possibly can.
We've kind of touched on this before, and the fact that how the accounting community is interacting with apps is changing over time. So how are you at FreeAgent seeing that evolution of the relationship between vendors and accountants?
Where we see it work the best is where we see that both parties realize that it is a partnership, and that partnership requires some kind of effort on both sides, right? So if you take the example of kind of turning up perhaps unprepared and uneducated about this stuff, and without kind of knowing what problem you're trying to solve for, then it can be difficult to help find a solution for that if we've not considered where we're trying to get to. And on the same token, if you flip it around to the other side of that conversation, I think that the opportunity to really get to understand how practices actually work, how decisions are taken, what effect that's going to have on workflow, and who it is that takes those decisions, and how software fits into that. If you don't seek to understand that stuff, then you're always going to be on the back foot, right? It's a complicated world being an accountant or a bookkeeper, and and as software people, I personally believe that we have an obligation to understand that stuff. Now, I'm lucky I've spent 10 years in practice, so I sort of, if I didn't understand it, then maybe I didn't understand it. That's why I'm not in practice anymore. But I find it eternally fascinating, like the inner workings of accountancy firms, and I could honestly sit and talk about them all day, every day, and never get bored of it. But not everybody takes that approach, and I think when both parties kind of come at it from a position of knowledge, then you end up in a better place.
Yeah, and I think that, as you said, that accountants are unique, but also the different size firms are unique. You talk to a small practice, and they're completely different in how they operate. Yeah. What you need to do as a vendor to a mid-tier or a larger practice. So you have to have a completely different approach. You have to understand it that we do not make decisions quickly, but when we do, we want to go. We want to get things done. So and I think that's the tipping edge, right? We need to see that ROI calculation. We need to appreciate the value that the software is bringing. So, but I guess some of that stuff's always been there. But how are you seeing a different approach? Maybe those early conversations is there a bit more respect from the accounting community towards software vendors now?
Rewind 10 years, right? There was a lot of buy status, loads of shelf licenses, go out. They'll deploy these in 6 months, 1,000 licenses, 500 licenses, whatever, right? John's face says it all. So I think Richard Sargent highlighted it to talk about how software spend had gone from 4.5% to 7.5%. And I think you naturally are going to kind of look at that and go, if you're a firm working on a margin of 18, 20%, maybe even sometimes even as low as 10, that's a huge chunk out of your potential nest egg and potential profits for the year. So people are being more considered about it, and I think in order to really get it to stick, you need to have that understanding of how accountants and bookkeepers work. You need to take the time to understand the individual firm, and seemingly some element of community, which I see often seems to tie in with the successful apps.
Community maybe, but it's more about just support and not being pushy. We don't like an aggressive sale to us. We like to understand, the value, and we do want to work in partnership. We've always seen it as a partnership because we get the tech and we want the tech to support our clients. But in the end, the client's going to come to us with the problems. So we need it to, how can together we solve this problem? So that I think is critical, and that's probably, and your approach is probably why you have been denoted as probably the friendliest accounting software in the world. Well, thanks, Tony. Thanks again for coming on and talking to us.
You're welcome. Cheers. Pleasure.
Anyway, who have you made interactions with Anu? What's interesting? Who have you met that we should know about?
I've been out here meeting some of the firms in the network. So I've met Jim Burke, who runs the technology part of Witham, which is one of the biggest firms over here in the US. They're based out of New York. I met Marianne Keller, who runs GHJ. They're over in LA, and they're another pretty large firm over here in the US, and doing some interesting things around technology. But they've, given where they are based in LA, they've got a huge number of very high-profile like directors, actors, producers, etc. on their books, and so do keep that stuff in there. And weirdly, in the not-for-profit sector as well. So it's been quite interesting to talk to them. And then once I landed in Vegas, I got introduced to a whole bunch of people who are here for Engage for the next few days, and so bumped into a mixture of accountants and vendors. Quite a lot of them are very much specifically US based, so products like Gusto, which is like a payroll product over here, for example. Bumped into Blake Oliver that we've had on the pod before. Who else have I bumped into? Bumped into the deputy CEO of AICPA over here, which was quite exciting. She was an interesting lady to meet. I was going to say I bumped into someone else. He described himself as the US version of Chris Downing. He used to work for Sage, doesn't work for them anymore. He's working for another app over here, but he's an accountant who's sort of like done the usual thing of like, became an accountant, realized that being an accountant was terrible, so then worked for tech businesses for the last 20 years, and so he's bounced around a few places. But so he was familiar with Newcastle and things like that, which is interesting.
So Chris Downing is now infamous in the US, and there are people comparing themselves, saying that I am the US version of Chris Downing. I wonder if this is other countries as well, like Australia does it.
I think it's a Sage only thing, because like this guy used to work for Sage, so he knew of Chris that way. I'm not sure Chris Downing's quite infamous enough over here, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's what we need to encourage him to become.
So is it because he also dances like over the top at accounting events? You have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, again, given that we're in Vegas, you'd think that Chris is fitting incredibly well, given that last time I went out with Chris, he was pole dancing like an absolute rock star. In this episode, we'll talk to Celso Pinto, co-founder of Pixie, which he recently successfully exited from. This is a rare chance to see behind the scenes of app vendors, how they build products, decide on roadmaps, market strategies, raise funds, and then manage the influence of investors. It's incredibly insightful for anyone involved in accounting tech, especially for an accountant or bookkeeper, because it will really help you understand the decisions your tech vendors make and how the profession might change in the near future. Celso's interview was packed with so much value that we have had to split it into two parts. Here's part one, but don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss part two. I'm delighted to be joined by Celso Pinto, who was the co-founder of Pixie, and if you caught his latest LinkedIn post, you'll have found that he's now exited. So I thought it was the opportune moment to catch up with Celso. We haven't had him on the podcast before, but it'd be great to find out a little bit about his journey, where he got to with Pixie, and why ultimately he decided that it was time to bail out and join the unemployment queue at the job centre, and maybe just maybe he's got something up his sleeve in terms of something that he may be doing in the future. So we'll try and squeeze that out of him, see what he's got planned, and maybe he's just going to put his feet up and he's going to do a Gary Turner and just put pike and slippers and just chill out by the fire and not do much else. But we'll see. But Celso, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on.
Thanks, John. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
I'd love to know a little bit more about your backstory, because I've known about you and known of you because of building Pixie, but I know you previously built something else and exited from that as well in the past. So it'd be great just to sort of hear a little bit about how you got into your practice management or accounting technology, but what you did before that, and where the sort of genesis of the idea of Pixie came from.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if my accent and name didn't give it away, I'm not exactly from here. I'm from Lisbon. So started my career there mid-90s as a software developer. So kind of like got into all this online stuff somewhat early, fortunately. Moved on from that, I'd say until about like 2009, give or take. So got into mobile super early as well. Interestingly enough, the first time I was here in 2000, I joined an e-commerce startup here in London, And as kind of like a side quest project, if you will, there were like these people talking about WAP and whatnot. Anyways, back in the day, that was like mobile web. And that got my interest. So that led me to build something for WAP at the time. And anyways, long story short, that got me back into Portugal to work on mobile phones and whatnot. And that's like super interesting time up until like 2009, give or take. And that's when I got into this stage where I was like doing consulting, and I had to start filing my tax returns in Portugal with Sole Trader, right? So it's no longer like personal income or working on stuff like that. And I found it to be like extremely complicated. But I tried selling to the tax authorities. They're selling in air quotes that look, it's definitely possible to simplify this. Like the application doesn't need to be a copy of the forms, which is different from what you guys still have here, unfortunately. So yeah, just trying to sell that concept to the tax authorities, and everyone was yapping, like, I can't do that. So instead of bringing kind of like the perspective of tax experts, my principle was, okay, let's do it from the design point of view, from the product point of view. And that was really my first foray into kind of like product, not necessarily with software development. In a nutshell, to prove a point. So holding a grudge to go like, I'm going to show you that this is possible.
And how receptive were the tax authorities to that in Portugal at the time?
Let's say that illegal stuff was done to be able to prove that point, but not too much illegal, just kind of like accessing services and stuff like that weren't public access.
A bit of web scraping and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of stuff. The interesting part for me, at least, was really just putting my product hat on and thinking holistically about something that made people's lives better rather than just building something for someone else. And I really, really, really enjoy that. I'll be very honest with you. And then, interestingly enough, that thing kind of took off too. We got to a point where we had, I would say, like 40, 50,000 taxpayers on the platform. So that wasn't like small potatoes.
And was that direct, or was that through accountants?
No, all direct. So interestingly enough, then the challenge was, how do we scale this? And in Portugal, the sole trader market isn't very large. Like at the time, there were like 200,000 people, give or take. Compare that with like 1 million something that exists here in the UK. So I came here to try to understand a bit more about the market, local market, etc. And by fortunate coincidence, we were invited by an investor group called Seedcamp, anyways. So they offered to invest with the assumption that we run the business from here because it's going to target the UK market. So we started looking more into serving accountants because for accountants, it's more of a recurring need. Like they have to file. I mean, we saw the charts from HMRC and it was like more or less flat, obviously with a bit of a spike at the end of the year. So there was this constant, more frequent need to use a product like ours. But it was a really interesting experience because it also allowed me to understand that, yes, this is collecting data from clients is an issue, but the client relationship itself, it's a bigger problem to maintain that. So the challenge that really, really stuck with me was how to balance the client relationship, if you will, with the delivery of the service of this of the work. But we're dealing with simple tax, so we're not doing any of this stuff. So put it in the the goodie box for a later time, and just try to focus on it. But unfortunately, we really couldn't crack that seasonality of the business, so we ended up selling to the guys that were at Keytime at the time. Keytime had sold to Iris. Some people were coming out, and they were kind of like rolling up a bunch of applications for sole traders, all of that. And interestingly enough, that very same team now, they also acquired Coconut and all of that. So they're like doing a great job, I think.
And so you did that in 2013, and then I think you started Pixie in 2014. Is that right? So you had a little bit of a break, or was that just? Oh, you were straight into it.
No, not at all. So that sale happened in 2014. And then I went and helped a few friends out, actually, from Chicago. Then took a bit of a break. Then went to help other friends more in the consulting side of the industry. So a few things here and there, but ultimately always either doing product or doing operations. It's kind of like two things that I don't dislike doing. Let's put it like that. And yeah, until interestingly enough, like this guy Bobby, he worked at Intuit. He used to be like the product person over at Intuit. And he wrote out that they were using Trello in his firm. I think it's like a blog post, something like on Accounting Web. And that for me was like, aha, how could this be? This is 2018. So you have your center just literally coming out, accounting manager as well and whatnot. But no one was really looking at what's the simpler end of the spectrum for these solutions.
I mean, if you look at practice management as a market, you've got a whole bunch of effectively what are sort of independent players. Then you've got the things that are wrapped into the suites, of which those are becoming more and more complex as things like people like Bright Group, for example, acquire things and merge those into stuff. Plus, you've then got things along the smaller end of the market as well. So it's a very complex sort of environment. And whilst there's commonality in terms of the product mix, I would say there's then very much things that are tailored for the particular part of the market those products are aimed at.
Completely. I mean, it's exactly as you say, because you have the different requirements. The way that we see it would almost be like you have the micro firms and like some small firms as well, and then you get like small to medium, and then you go from medium to, I don't know, like top 200, and then you go above that, and it's just like, forget about it. That they're using CCH and whatnot, so there is no chance. No one is getting them of any of that. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's kind of like it's competitive, but there's always a niche for things. And it's always possible to try and make things simpler. I think throwing the kitchen sink at people is very easy. Especially when we're talking to obviously customers and stuff like that, and they turn to you and they're like, "Oh, I want this feature. I want this feature. I want this feature." Yeah. It's very easy to say yes. Like it's extremely easy to say yes and keep everyone happy. But then you end up with a massively confusing product. And people then come to people like us and go like, "Oh, I used to love it, but now it does way more than I need to, and it's like super complicated, and you can't track anything, etc." And you're like, well, that's a downside, right? Of no editorial filter. So yeah, anyways, we came to market more from that angle of, is there a need for something simple? And as it turns out, there was. So fortunately for us, our timing was also good. And we kind of slogged in for the first couple of years, bootstrapping and just trying to prove a bunch of things, specifically around product and customers and all of that. But once we got into the stage of, we're comfortable enough and we're getting enough traction here to pursue this full time, then we just went all in, and we ended up raising the seed round. And this is 21 that this happened, and then just tried to grow from there as well. All in all, it kind of like look back and go, yeah, this was at times painful, but I think we very much punched above our weight in a bunch of times.
What were the sort of killer things that you were absolutely nailing down and saying, look, this is what we're going to deliver as Pixie, and this is what's going to set us apart from the rest of the market?
There's one thing that we see time and time and again when we talked and asked people, look, show me what you have right now. Why is that a problem for you? And it would be, just opening up the lists and having hundreds of tasks to manage. And interestingly enough, like that still today continues being a problem. I think we got it right now at the end, and hopefully, the team that's now taking care of the product will come out with it. But ultimately, that also stems from kind of like people's own perception and complexities and things like that, where they go like, oh, now we need to assign every subtask to someone to be owned by someone. And you go like, no, you have to shift the mindset here a bit and think about the deliverable. The deliverable needs to have an owner, a driver, someone who is actually accountable to this. But the tasks themselves, they're meaningless. So having that sort of complexity just creates a mess, right? me as the accounting owner, the firm owner, maybe I don't deal with that, but my team does. Then they just ditch the practice manager and go work on Excel. So like, yeah, here I only have a date in the row and that's it. So it's far easier. So, having that very, very deliberate choice from our side of going, we're not going to do that. At least not until we actually understand what's trying to be achieved here. The other one was around the email integration. So again, very quickly understood from seeing people that they all started their own Outlook and just trying to prioritize that stream of stuff that sits there was quite important, and just making sure that those emails, if you will, just land immediately on someone's on the client record. So as opposed to just being on someone's kind of like isolated inbox. So kind of like that collaborative aspect to the email, I think was pretty interesting at the time for us, and definitely kind of like allowed us to wedge our way into the market, if you will. So, between kind of like those things and a more flexible approach to client manager, so this would be the CRM, that definitely helps. So those three things, I'd say, were the main values to it.
You seem to suddenly, almost be everywhere, and you were the product that everyone was talking about. You were the one that was sort of, obviously Center got sold to Iris. Your accountancy manager remained independent until becoming part of Bright Group fairly recently. But you were definitely sort of the one product that, certainly in my view, smaller firms are sort of saying, yes, this is the one that makes a real difference. So were you seeing that in reality in terms of like numbers and traction and everything else? Clearly,
100%.
To get to a seed round, you've got to have some success there, right?
Look, I can't give you like the actual baseline numbers, but I'm happy to talk about rates, obviously. And we grew tenfold in the space of like 3 months. And then we traveled pretty much every year since, if you will.
Wow.
So that was like pretty good work. And to be fair, a lot of that stems from the foundations that Jordan Vickery that he left in terms of marketing. So yeah, like that was just amazing to have that sort of growth. And there were times where it's like we're just getting way more demand than what we can serve, like quite literally. Again,
and how do you manage that? I mean, how do you balance that off? Because clearly, in some respects, you don't want to turn away business, but obviously, I know from talking to other people who've been founders and had businesses that have either been very successful or not. Actually, that demand management and making sure that you can still deliver a good onboarding process, a good onboarding experience, and then good ongoing service, customer service and things. That's really important. And if you don't manage that well, then you can have you can have a ton of interest, but then all of a sudden it can turn quite sour quite quickly. So how did you manage that?
Yeah. Look, at the beginning, it was pretty much just doing extremely long hours, trying to cope with everything and handle everyone, until we were able to kind of like formalize and then start to bring a few really good folks to help us out. Interestingly enough, that's how we started expanding the team, just on the delivery side, on the client service side. So that worked for a while, but very quickly again, and this is entirely on me. Like big mistake is just being at the front of everything. Very quickly, people just get the expectation of actually talking to the owner, and we're not running a restaurant. So, a restaurant, you have like limited space. So as an owner, you can kind of like just, fly around the different tables and whatnot and make everyone comfortable. As a business owner in a digital business, it's a bit harder to continue doing that. But, try to keep it for as long as possible until it wasn't anymore. But still, I think that the team really tried to do their best to kind of like catch up to all the best practices and everything. And for the longest time, like we had insane numbers in terms of client satisfaction. I'm talking like 97%, 98% and stuff like that. So again, we always understood that to be a big differentiator versus the big brands. Like if you go talk to Iris support, good luck getting an answer this week. You see what I mean? Whereas with us, you drop on the chats and you have someone talking to you 5, 10, 30 minutes within that. Obviously, it's not instant. Like, we don't have people sitting around waiting for for a message to come through. But I those things really helped with. I mean, it's a two-edged sword or double-edged sword. It helped with getting these rabbit fans and whatnot. But on behind the curtain, let me tell you that it's really painful at points to cope with that.
So you've got this very simple and inverted commas product in terms of what you're trying to deliver. You've got huge amount of demand coming in, and I'm sure with that demand there then must have been a huge amount of expectation from those customers to sort of say, right, Celso, we've got Pixie and it's great, and we love the job and task management, we love the email management, but now we want this, and this. How did you manage that? Because obviously, if your objective was to stay as a simple product, but your customers have a different expectation, is that a challenging conflict to overcome?
It is. It definitely is. And one of the biggest challenges, I would agree with you, is just kind of like understanding what are trees and what is the forest. And from a feature point of view, like I said, look, it's very easy to say yes, but then you end up with like this highly dysfunctional product that no one really understands. And I always try to kind of like try to avoid that. Not in kind of like an arrogant way of, oh, we know best. That I feel is a mistake of a lot of these firms that come out with their own products, wink, where they go, oh yeah, we built this product for us, we built this practice manager for us and whatnot, and now we're kind of like giving it to the world. They're not. That's nonsense. That they're kind of like just throwing everything at it without much thought and consideration. So from our side, we always try to have that sort of care. But then where the challenge really came about is when suddenly you start getting pulled up market, slightly up market. So again, coming back to that thing that we're discussing, micro firms, small firms, medium firms, etc. When you start getting small to medium firms knocking at your door, like, we love the simplicity of this, but it would be great if it had this. And then you start seeing the revenue multiples coming off the back of that. Very quickly, you go, oh man, how do we balance this, right? So that's where things just become really challenging.
Was your objective to try and just serve those sort of maybe those micro accountants, or did you want to kind of like move up the market segments, as it were? Because that is traditionally the way that things tend to go, isn't it? People go for the smaller firms first because they're probably a little bit easier to serve, and then as you build, you can add a bit of complexity, can't you?
100%. So interestingly enough, we always saw that as a very real risk to the business, because once you start going upstream, right, the product becomes more complicated. It's just inevitable. And if you do that, then you lose the appeal of the simplicity. Then it just becomes another one. It becomes like really hard to kind of like set yourself apart from everyone else in the market.
But you could maybe differentiate yourself on the customer service, because as you said, you had exceptional customer service scores, for example.
Yeah. But yeah, all that it takes, I'll be very honest with you, to reproduce some of that is like a very clued, customer service head of, director, VP, you name it, to just go and say, you know what, we actually have to change this and make this, a revenue driver, because here's the other side of the cost. And this is something that very few people think about. Support is not the cost thing. Support is a growth engine, because off the back of that great support, you get word of mouth referrals and whatnot, which are very hard to achieve for business products. So all the growth investment should go there and less on, more wild stuff. But that's just my opinion. That worked for us, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, like even that, I'm not sure if it would be enough. But just coming back to your question, like, it was more of a matter of how do we balance this? Like, ultimately, how do we pull this one off? How do we keep a product that's simple, and how do we get into a point where we have a product for firms that are more sophisticated, that have more sophisticated needs, that can also cater to that? And the answer that I got to, I don't know what it's good about, but it's the one that we got to anyways, was to actually split it and go, you know what? We have this simple product here that has a set of assumptions going into it. And now we're going to invest into building this other product here, which is for maybe the firms that got into the simple one, but now they outgrew it and now they need something more. And for the larger firms, which, gosh, listen, we got like firms, top 10 firms, looking at our V2 product and going, yeah, like, let's sign the contract because this is exactly what we want. They would never do that with a smaller product, right? So from that point of view, the decision seemed right. The challenge really was now we're starting from scratch for real. And we're starting from scratch with hundreds of customers, thousands of users, a growing team, investor expectations, obviously. So yeah, it was like those were like really, really challenging things to have to deal with. But again, looking back, I think that's still the right decision. I'll be very honest with you. Like just having that split between the two.
Yeah, and when you're sort of saying this is almost like a new product, was this distinct from Pixie version 1, if you like, or was it more about you were just adding additional feature sets onto that product which were at a different price point?
Yeah, distinct, and mostly also because we learned a ton.
Right.
So we never really had the chance. When you do a startup, it's fairly common to just kind of like get an MVP out and build on top of that, try to iterate as much as possible, and then kind of like steer the ship towards the end product. We with V1 is like we had the chance to iterate until we didn't. Like the demand was so high, so quick in such a short time frame that's like, oh, shift, right? And I mean shift, by the way, with an F. So it was really interesting because it was literally going, oh, now we need to serve all of this and we need to support all of this. So hold on anything new for a while until we actually get off the stage, and we never did.
Was that the infrastructure you'd built into? Was that the features and stuff you built
Yeah.
and stuff? Because I know, talking to Johnny Gaunt, for example, I know when they built Xavier Analytics, they kind of he sort of said one of the issues that they went was that they kind of went with the cheapest, most accessible hosting. For example, they went with because they were bootstrapping it, they were very conscious about cost, and he said he kind of regretted that because if he could go back and do it again, which he kind of is doing now with his new project, but if he could go back and do it again, he would have gone and I'm going to invest in AWS, for example, or equivalent, and I'm going to go for this, and this, because I know that then I don't have this big shift that I'm going to maybe have to do in another 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah. Just a small aside, you guys can cut it off if you want to later. But that guy is an actual visionary. Like the stuff that they did with Xavier, that stuff was pretty cool. I wouldn't sell that early, but I'm sure that they made out. So it's still like kick-ass product, seriously, like really, really good. I've sort of seen what's coming out, or at least the stuff that they announced, but I haven't really fully wrapped my head around it. But like Xavier, pretty solid stuff. So I would exclude that from my earlier comments. Okay, like nope. I'm speaking specifically about practice, because practice management is just one of those things where it's all about workflow and how you operate a firm. So it's very, very deliberate, if you will, and unless you come from a position where you literally just just want to learn.
The thing that I hear a lot is like firms have a very specific way of working. Time and fees, although they're all effectively trying to achieve the same thing, different firms have different versions of that almost, if you like. And was that a difficult thing for you to kind of consolidate and cut through the noise and then say, right, this is the kind of feature that we need to build that addresses the problem?
Yeah, totally. Look, for Pixie specifically, we're always very, very deliberate, which is in our ICP, we always knew that we wanted firms that are very collaborative. So things are out in the open, no timesheets, no anything. So just really trying to get to a good place where they feel in control with things. We do like tens of demos a week, and out of the back of those, about half of them would be disqualified because they'd be like, oh, I want to have timesheets, I want to have this, I want to have that, to control stuff, right? Like permissions and this and that. They were like, this isn't the right products for you. It was one of the best things I feel that we always had from a cultural point of view, was really to just know who we want to sell to. And if it's not a good fit, we tell it like straight up. We'd rather lose the business than just try to pretend that we're something that we're not.
So that's part one of Celso's interview. In part two, we'll get into raising money, the ongoing role of investors, and how he sees AI impacting bookkeeping and compliance work. It's not to be missed. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you guys for joining us. We're so delighted that you could join us for today's podcast. If you have any feedback, then you know how to hit us up. You know where we're at. Don't be strangers. And if you see John Toon, run the other way, because it is likely that he is totally naked. And that's the way he likes it, because he's European.
It's my European style of approaching conferences, yeah.